All right, welcome back. So first thing we want to do is just hit X and delete our basic Suzanne there. And let's go ahead and import your design. So to do that, we'll do File up at the top left, do Import, and do STL. And I'm just going to bring in one of our very first STLs that we did with Suzanne. And I'm going to do the low poly one here. So just click on that, hit Import. And notice Suzanne showed up way over here. And that's because when I exported it, we had all the Suzannes laid out across. So if that happens, we need to reset the origin point. And I'll show you a quick way to do that. So you can see that if I have Suzanne selected, we've got that little orange dot right here in the middle. So it's kind of like saying the origin point is over here for this model. So if we hit rotate, it's rotating at that origin point. But that's not what we want. So go ahead and hit Tab, go into Edit Mode, do Shift S, and then bring your 3D cursor to your selected geometry like that. And notice we've got our 3D cursor in the very center or in the heart of our design. And if we tab back into Object Mode, the 3D cursor is still there, and we can go Object, Set Origin to the 3D cursor. And there we go. Now the little orange dot has moved to the center of our design, and we can zero it out up here, or what I like to do, just hit Alt G, and there we go. We've got it right there in the center, and we'll do G and Z to bring it on up. So you may have to do that if your design comes in kind of, off to the side like mine did. Now let's add a material to our design. You can do any color you want. We'll just go to Material, and I've got one already in here, so I'll just do Material. I may rename that to Red. And there we go. So we've added a red material to our Suzanne the monkey here. And you can even play with some of the sliders. If you want it to be a little bit more metallic, you can do that. You can play with the specular to change kind of how the light is hitting it. You can change the roughness, and that'll make it a little more kind of metallic and shiny looking. So, play around with those. You can't break it. And then when you look around, it'll kind of interact with your object a little different. And we can even get this to look even cooler. So while make sure you're still in EEVEE mode. I'm going to turn my information panel off just for a second. Maybe get rid of my tools with T. And let's go to our render panel here. Make sure you're in EEVEE. And let's just check some of these boxes. So let's add ambient occlusion. That's going to make little shadows in between, like where the ears are hitting the ground. And then we have bloom, which is going to give it just a little shimmer and little shine once the light hits it in certain angles. And to turn on depth of field, let's go to our camera view. So hit 0. Now we're inside of our camera view here. No, because we can see the little square window. And I just noticed that Suzanne here is in our studio. So let's click and drag her down to the flexible design. There we go. And click on your camera. And we're going to turn on depth of field. So make sure you're, in your camera view. So if not, just hit 0 and go to the camera tab that's appeared. And right here in the middle, you'll see depth of field. So go ahead and click that and watch what happens to Suzanne here. So we'll hit depth of field, and it got a little blurry. And the reason it did is kind of like it's out of focus on your camera. So this is going to make your scene look a little bit more cinematic. But we need to focus on Suzanne. So an easy way to do that, you could go to the focal distance and kind of try and figure it out and just scroll around and try and get it. But what I like to do is just use this eyedropper and just click on the object you want in focus. That way, no matter where you move your camera, like say if I zoom in here, the focus is going to stay. And that's really, really convenient. So that's our depth of field. Let's go back to our render tab right here. And we also want to turn on screen space reflections. And that's just going to make whatever color our background or our floor is, it's going to bounce that onto our objects. So that's really nice. And we don't need motion blur, but we do want some soft shadows. So make sure if you go to your shadows tab, twiddle it down, you want to make sure your soft shadows is selected. So if it's not, it should automatically be, but if it's not, just make sure that's turned on. And there we go. We've already got this looking way cooler. You can even see the color of our the floor kind of reflecting in there. And we'll just go 0 to go back into our camera view. And I think now we're ready to export an image. So do Shift tilde, make sure you've got your camera exactly where you want it. And we're going to export out a frame. So I'm just going to get my camera pretty tight on this design here. And for the CR10 volume, it's actually going to show up in our render. So to make it where it doesn't do that, we can do this little golf tee kind of icon here. Click on that and do your toggles. Turn on this little computer screen right there and make sure that your CR10 volume is turned off for these last two, this one here and this little camera. And now you can hit F12 on your keyboard or just go up to the top here, say render, and render an image. And then you'll get a render box that appears, and looky there, we've got a rendered out image of your design. And then all you have to do to save this to your computer is go up to the top and say image, save as, and export inside of your render folder. And you can call it anything you want. We'll call this Suzanne low poly, and you can change any of your settings, but they should be pretty fine just as is, and just save your image. So there you go. Now you've got an image that you can share online or, add to your portfolio. Or share in the Discord and let me see and the community see what you've been working on. And we'd love to see what you made and give you some, some praise and some, feedback. So please feel free and don't be bashful to share your work. It's part of the process. And then so to get out of this, we can just hit X up here and that'll get out of our render. And let's go ahead and jump into the next lesson where I'm going to show you how to add little layer lines to your renders here.